Manx Radio, we're chatting with a stalwart, a giant of the music world, if you will, Glenn Tilbrook of Squeeze. Glenn, welcome to Manx Radio. Squeeze playing here on the island at the Villa Marina next Tuesday evening. You played here with the bands and solo a number of times. Is it a venue you enjoy playing?
Yeah, we've always had really good time there. It's always nice to visit, and it's always nice to see some familiar faces there. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Squeeze celebrating 50 years in the business this year. What's the secret of the band's success, would you say?
I feel really proud of what we're doing now. I feel really proud of the fact that I think we're the best we've ever been, and audience reaction tells me that it's not just some sort of daydream. The reactions we're getting now it's the best. It really is the best. The only time I could compare it to is when we were first sort of coming up. We concentrate a lot on what we do, and we're trying not to fall asleep while doing it, which I think we did for a while back in the day. But those days are long gone now.
The nice thing is when you go to a Squeeze gig, sort of generationally, it's right the way across, isn't it? You've got people that have obviously been with you since the early days in the 70s, right the way through to presumably sometimes kids, grandkids of those that followed you, but it's a real spread of people.
Yeah, I think there is a spread, and I could say that I think one of the things that's happened. Obviously I loved it when records sold and all that stuff, but that's no longer the case. And when you do a record, you don't think of it in terms of selling. You think of it in terms of what you can do for it to be artistically right and pleasing, and also whether it will make some sort of splash somewhere to get us along. And right now, I think it's just that we've managed to hold it together. That we've changed the band about a bit, and everyone is at the top of their game, and we're just getting great reactions, and I'm really happy for that.
Take us back to the band's start in deepest, darkest Deptford, right side of the river, by the way. How did you and Chris Difford get together?
He put an advert in a sweet shop window, looking for a guitarist whose influences were the Kinks, Glenn Miller, and Lou Reed, which was an interesting trio of things to relate to. And I was the only person that replied. So I got the job. Pretty much as soon as we met, we started writing. And, I mean, I was 16 and Chris was 19. And I'm very focused on that era now, because the album that we're just finishing up now, which is I don't even know what it's called, but it's a bunch of songs we wrote when we first met. And I think what happens, we had 3 years of like nothing doing in terms of making a record. So you write songs and then you move on. You have to do it that way, and we've never had cause to go back to them. But when I look at what we did when we were first together, it's amazing. It's like we sparked something in each other that was really beyond the sum of what we were doing individually, and that's pretty rare, I think.
If we go back to that time, punk was exploding. There was obviously disco. There was rock. We were at the tail end of progressive rock and all that stuff. How quickly did you decide on the Squeeze sound?
Well, this is another thing. I think that, again, the songs that we wrote in 1974 are really, some of them are really complicated, not prog rocky, but very songy, lots of changes and stuff. So our songwriting was one thing. What we could play, I think, was another. If we'd recorded those songs, we did have a go at it, but if we'd recorded them at that point, we wouldn't have done them justice. And now we can. So by the time that punk came along, I think what we did was to simplify how we were, simplify our approach. And and I think it worked, but we had all that sort of background of writing behind us, and that really stood us in good stead for the future as well.
You mentioned writing. How does that process work with you and Chris? Is it one of you comes up with an idea, or do you jam together? How does it work?
We've never been, we haven't really jammed since the very early days, and our work is separate. Chris will come up with a lyric, and I'll see what happens with a tune, and then we'll more often than not, these days we work on the lyrics together once we have a whole thing, and try and get everything up to speed.
The Villa Marina gig next Tuesday is part of the 50th anniversary tour for Squeeze. When it comes to putting together the live shows, how on earth do you choose a set list?
With with great difficulty, actually. But I mean, this is the first official show of the tour, so we're very excited. We did a couple of warm-up shows last week, and the reaction from the audience to stuff that we've never done before, as well as songs that they know, was just off the chart. It's really good. It's such a good feeling.
Your lyrics work on so many levels, from sort of whimsical and fun right the way through to deep and really insightful looks at life. Where does the inspiration come from? Is it just everyday life?
I think Chris has a background of being an observer. He doesn't really write personal lyrics to him, but his character comes through so very well. And when I met him, I I gave up writing lyrics because he was so good. And I still think he's got that touch.
It is an incredible thing. On that similar vein, you've been rightly compared by many to Lennon and McCartney when it comes to composition and lyrics. That's an incredible compliment.
It's a very big compliment, and not one we take lightly. Although I have to say, we don't really think about it when we're working. What we think about is how good is this going to be.
Which is a great place to sort of keep it going, I guess. I've seen you many times down the years. I have to fess up, I'm a fan in London, in Belfast, here on the Isle of Man, and most memorably, my favourite gig of all time, Yorkshire Grey Pub in Elton. It was awesome days, awesome days. Where was your favourite place to play? I'm guessing Glastonbury recently is going to be in there, but where is your favourite memory of a Squeeze gig?
I was really annoyed with the BBC not showing us. We were so good. We were
That's
the
outrageous. I'm thinking of cancelling the licence fee for that.
Honestly, it was terrible, a terrible decision. But we had a really great crowd, very large crowd, and we went down so well. It was everything we could have hoped for.
Excellent stuff. And is that the you would say your favourite gig you've played for Squeeze anyway?
Do you know? I'd say it's one of them. It's really hard to get it down to one, and some of the best shows are in small places. I find that the size of the gig. I remember when we were younger, we get sort of a bit phased if we were playing to big crowds, but that just doesn't happen. I don't think we're overconfident or cocky, but just the right amount of adrenaline flows through, and we can deliver on any stage. So, I mean, one of my favorite gigs is when I was at the sort of very bottom end of my career, and I played six people in a place in Sydney that was held 600. And when I went on stage, I knew there were that amount of people there. I thought, well, I can either be really apologetic and miserable, or we can have a great time. And I thought the thing to do is let's get all six people together, and I'll play to them around a table, which is what we did. And I really, really love the memory of that show. It was so good.
Brilliant stuff. And I get the impression in the gigs I've seen, and certainly from listening to people as they come out from your gigs, last time you played here on the Isle of Man, people get the impression, I get the impression that you guys are having a good time there as well.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. It's I feel so energized every time we play, and I think we're all very concentrated on doing the best we can.
And it seems to be a different gig every night, as I say, which is I think is brilliant with live music. Black Coffee in Bed, traditionally the encore song. I remember leading that in Belfast, and nobody else apart from my wife and I seemed to know it. So we were doing it. Everyone around us looked a bit puzzled and then joined in. And then you came back on stage and spent time just shaking hands with the audience, which was a lovely touch. I don't think there are too many bands that would do that. It was lovely. I've mentioned about sort of seeing you in different places. You and Chris have also both played solo gigs, released solo music. I remember seeing you play at the Mick Jagger Centre in Dartford when you walked to the bar over bar stools put out by the audience. You also recorded an album as a duo back in the 80s, but despite all the lineup changes and everything else, Squeeze have thankfully always come back together as a band. What can we look forward to when this tour is completed in November?
We've done, as I was saying, an album of 50-year-old songs, but at the same time as that, we've been recording another album of new songs. So one has fed the other. We've been amazed by the quality of the stuff we wrote 50 years ago. And in a way, it's been a real spur to go, all right, we've got to match that. And then when we matched that, we went back to the old songs. And, One has inspired the other, so that's our next two albums sorted out, I think.
Excellent stuff. You're over on the island again, as we mentioned, Villa Marina next Tuesday as part of the Squeeze 50th anniversary tour. Will you get any chance to actually get out and about and see the island, or is it pretty much sort of lockdown, hotel, band, gig, and back off?
Do you know, we finished in the studio yesterday, and I absolutely I know what I'm doing over the next few days. I have no idea of the schedule or when I get there or when I go. If there's time, I always like to have a walk around. I always like to walk and explore. And, I've had some good walks on the Isle of Man.
It is a fabulous place for that, and the sun is shining today, so that probably means it'll be raining next Tuesday. But hey, listen, them's the breaks, I guess. Got to ask you a quick question. Charlton season ahead, what do you think?
Well, we live in hope.
That's a fair question. Listen, as a Dartford fan, I can relate to that. You've written incredible songs down the years. We've talked about the composition. My favourite Squeeze song has got to be "Some Fantastic Place," and I know it's one that means a lot to you and Chris, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's a very personal song. Um, and we haven't done it for a while, but we've just put that in the set for this tour. So
You
yeah.
have just made my day. Thank you.
So you can hear that on Tuesday.
Looking forward to it. And last question for you. You've written some brilliant tracks, as we said. It's a horrible question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have a favourite Squeeze song, one that you look back and go, if I had written and been involved in the composition of nothing else, that would make me proud?
Uh, well, right now I've been in awe of our teenage selves. So if I say the song, you won't know it, but it's a song called Trixie's Part Two.
So we look forward to hearing that when the album comes out.
Yeah, that'll be next year, but that's what's going around in my head at the moment.
Fabulous stuff. Glenn Tilbrook, Squeeze, the 50th anniversary tour, well and truly underway, playing at the Villa Marina in Douglas next Tuesday evening. We're looking forward to seeing you, Glenn, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's been a pleasure.